Attendance this morning. First of all, on behalf of the committee, I'd like to welcome George Graham to the meeting this morning. As mentioned at the last committee meeting, George is now our SPA representative, replacing Brian Barber. So welcome to the meeting this morning. Welcome, George. Item 1, Senate apologies, Lucy.
Good morning. We have 7 members present today. We are quorate and have apologies from Councillor Blake and Councillor Nicholl. Councillor Brodie and Councillor Tate are not present, but may be along later in the meeting.
Thanks, Lucy. Any declarations of interest, members? No. Thank you. Just before we go on, we've noticed that item 5, there's been papers produced online, but we haven't got printed papers, so I'm just going to ask Lucy for some advice on where we go with that one.
Members should have received an electronic copy of this item. So if you've not had a chance to read the papers for this, a hard copy is being produced. So you may want a chance to adjourn.
Okay, members, okay with that? Thank you. Item 3, minute of 10th of December for noting. Thank you. Item 4, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, Dumfries and Galloway Local Plan 2014-17, 11-month performance update, 1st April to 2015 to 29th of February 2016. Report by Director of Communities. Speaking to the report today, we have Group Managers Joe Hamill and Dave Broughton, as Alan Fairbairn is on leave. So, if they could come forward, please. Martin, have you anything to say to the report, then?
Good morning. I'm Group Manager Joe Hamill. I'm the Prevention and Protection Group Manager in the Dumfries and Galloway area. And my colleague next to me is Group Manager David Broughton. He's the Head of R&R in the Dumfries and Galloway area also. If I could just remind you of the KPIs that we have for our 6-monthly report. We have all deliberate primary fires, all deliberate secondary fires, all accidental dwelling fires, all accidental other building fires, all fatal fire casualties, non-fatal fire casualties, special services, road traffic collisions, special services, fatal and non-fatal casualties, false alarms which are malicious, and false alarms which are equipment failure. I'd like to start towards the back of the report if I could. At the all fatal fire casualties, it's with sadness that the report that we've had 3 fire fatal casualties in the area. One of those was during a vehicle fire. The 2 others were property fires. And if I can just give you an overview of what we're doing to deal with these types of incidents. The 3 fatal fires in the region during the reporting period, due to the nature of one, which is the vehicle fire, a case conference has not been held. The other 2 incidents, we have held case conferences with partner agencies. These have raised issues with regard to reporting mechanisms, information sharing, and early intervention. It gives us an opportunity to sit with the partners to discuss what we're going to do, how we're going to improve these issues in the future. Unfortunately, with these individuals, they were not known to the Fire and Rescue Service and not known to the other agencies. However, as we go out into the community, our links with social services and other partners is extremely good. They'll identify individuals that have chaotic lifestyles, they have antisocial, or they're isolated from the community. I'll just move back to the beginning of the report. All deliberate primary fires. There's no major change across 15-16 for the deliberate primary fires. Two of the primary fires were in children's homes. On each occasions, the fire officers and the community action teams have worked with those particular premises in order to prevent any further escalation or further occurrences of this. Dumfries and Galloway have held open days for young people in the fostering and adoption programme, specifically to raise awareness for fire and deliberate fire setting. So we are out there, we're proactive, and we're trying to prevent this before it occurs. All deliberate secondary fires. There has been a reduction in the deliberate secondary fires. The community action team, again, regularly use social media to give advice with regard to grass and wildfire issues in the area. We target schools, young people, providing education around the dangers and consequences of deliberate fire setting. Again, we're proactively working with other partners so that we can give talks and we can be out in the community trying to prevent this before it occurs. All accidental other building fires. Again, over a period of time, it's been fairly static, but there has been a reduction 15-16 to 31. We try and identify, if it's accidental, what the cause of the fire is through fire investigation and through intervention through other parts of our organisation. In these instances, we've not seen a pattern of why these accidental fires are occurring. So again, we raise awareness. We do a post-domestic incident response to all premises, where if we have a fire, the crews on the ground will offer a home fire safety visit both sides of the property, and then the CAT team will go back later if there's been an injury or a death, and they'll offer a wider ranging home fire safety visit to different properties within that location. Non-fire fatal casualties. For 15 and 16, again, we're showing a reduction in the non-fire fatal casualties. As I've mentioned, the PDIR policy that we have, which is post-domestic incident response, where we offer home safety visits. We also have Olive Branch training to partners. Olive Branch basically raises the awareness of individuals to the signs and symptoms of an individual who may cause us concern in the future. That can be raised through different agencies, who will then provide us information on those individuals so that we can target them for home safety visits and further intervention. Special service road traffic collisions. Again, it's fairly static. We would like to see it reduced a lot more. In that vein, we have relaunched with our partner agencies the Road Safety Partnership, in which the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service are currently chairing the strategic group. We've also reinvigorated the tactical group, which meets tomorrow with a view to more joined up working so that we can reduce the number of road traffic collisions on our roads. The final area I would like to cover is the unwanted fire alarms or false alarms due to equipment failure. We've seen a significant rise in the area. That's down to reporting methodologies and the way our control works. What we've done in order to reduce this is the service has reinvigorated the unwanted fire signals policy, but we've also introduced a first knock system so that if a false alarm comes in, one of the officers will pick that up the next morning. They'll contact the premises with advice, guidance, and just ask them if there's an issue. That concludes my cover of the report. Is there any questions, please?
Thank you. Thanks for the report. Open up to members. Members' questions. Alistair.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm looking at all deliberate secondary fires. In view of the extremely wet winter we had, I don't know whether to facetiously commend people who are actually able to start a fire in the open in November, but I think seriously, am I correct in assuming that the spike in numbers in November and tracking back for most of the previous years, I'm looking at page 12, would that be around bonfire night? Would I be correct in assuming that?
I was just a quick discussion with my colleague there. Yes, it is around the bonfire night period. We do work closely with the police and other agencies at that time so that we get the correct response to these types of incidents so that we can identify whether it is actually a fire that's under control or it's an organised event, which we encourage people to attend, or whether it's something that we need to deal with quite quickly.
Yes, come on.
Yeah, that's as we suspected, and certainly there seems to be a pattern, and I know you can only do your best to try and control this, but I noticed that in 2013-14, it seemed to break the pattern, and maybe something was done then that was successful. I don't know. Maybe that's an unfair question, but perhaps I would welcome your response.
I think given that period, there's a number of different issues that will impact on that, whether it be weather, whether it be conditions, whether it be the different environments we have throughout the year. What we do endeavour to do, irrespective of what the weather's doing or the time of the year, we have a programme in place. It's calendared throughout the year so that we can look at the thematic issues. So whether it be grass and gauze, during that period we'll provide advice, we'll go to schools, we'll speak to the various different children and identify that issue. When we come to the bonfire night, and again, it's another themed approach where we'll go out, we'll speak to the schools, we'll tell them the dangers of setting fires, obviously the fireworks, dangers of fireworks, and again, we'll liaise with our other agencies in order to do that.
Craig?
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at your summary table on page 6 of the report there, and it tells us that out of all the indicators you have there, there's only 2 of them that have declined over the period of the summary that we have here. Although I appreciate that some of the numbers haven't increased by a lot, and the percentages maybe exaggerate that a wee bit because of the small numbers in some of the cases. But I was just wondering, because it's an increase across the board, what sort of effect is that having with the retained service that we have? Because as we know, there's only 1 full-time fire station in the region. And is that putting any added pressure onto the retained services throughout the rest of the region? And I know that you've been trying to recruit retained staff throughout the region, and I was just sort of wondering what effect that had on the service there, whether it's putting additional pressure that you may be having some issues with, or whether the services that you have there through the retained side are coping with it quite happily.
I'd like to say that the retained service are coping it very adequately, and I think also what we've seen is a difference when we came into a national service. We get a lot more support now from further north, or even east at times. Nationally, there's been quite a drive on recruitment to the retained service, and we've had a really good take-up on that. The recruitment occurs on a quarterly basis now, although we're sort of advertising throughout the year. We're obviously have got district support managers out there still managing stations as they always did, and as far as the attendance to incidents, we've seen no detriment really at all. So, and you're quite correct, Councillor. The figures that we're talking about, stats are great, but when you get an increase of 1 and it goes up by 50%, it looks terrible, but really it's just such small figures we're talking about. So yeah.
Thank you. Well, just on the back of that then, do we have any of the retained stations throughout the region that are understaffed at the moment?
Through retirement and obviously with the retained service being able to, due to their own primary employment being redeployed elsewhere, we obviously do have people that will leave periodically throughout the year. We try to be as proactive as we possibly can. We think we know we've got a really good working relationship with all our personnel, retained and whole-time. So wherever possible, they give us really good notice if they are going to be leaving, and therefore we try wherever possible to make sure that we're quick to get that recruitment sort of message out and recruit as quickly as we can. There's obviously a process in place from taking an untrained member of the public through to a professional firefighter, and that does take a time. That's just the way it has to be. So we do have some stations which we're actively recruiting for, and we do have people actually in the system at this moment in time who are going through training. But as far as Dumfries and Galloway area, the southwest of Scotland, we're pretty much there as far as the numbers across all stations. There are, I think, 3 stations which are short at this moment in time. But like I said, we are dealing with that, and we are recruiting, and we do have people in the system ready to take that place as and when they've completed their necessary training.
Thanks. And just another follow-on. For the 3 stations that are on demand at the moment, is there enough cover from nearby stations for when there is a call out for that, so you'll be able to man a unit to go out and deal with whatever the incident is?
Yes, there certainly is. I think one of the best things, again, that came from the coming together as a national service, as a one service, is there's quite a robust mechanism in place for individual firefighters, RDS firefighters, to book on and off duty. Now, obviously, RDS firefighters live and work within that community. They're very conscious of that. So they work quite closely together. They'll try to ensure that they'll maintain the appliance or the station available all times. There are going to be times. There just has to be times with the RDS service when a fire appliance or a station will go offline, as it were. But wherever that occurs, it's picked up by Johnston Control, the fire service control, and we'll make sure that if there is a gap anywhere in the southwest, that a standby pump is put into that position. Sometimes that's not needed if obviously the stations in and around that area are still available. But it's constantly monitored through a system called GARTAN, both by Johnston Control and obviously by the station managers that control those stations and by the personnel themselves. And a notification goes out to, if a pump goes off the run because somebody has to book off due to primary employment or personal reasons or whatever, then a message will go out to all the other, if it takes it off the run, it's called a breach. A message will be automated out to all firefighters on that station. So if somebody is capable of being booking back on duty, then they do so.
Thank you. Ronnie?
Just to follow on from, follow on from Craig. These reports are then, we get them at the area committees twice a year now, and so they're localised. We used to get monthly meetings, or more so with the police than the fire service. But what would be interesting is the staffing levels across the region, so we get a handle on it. You know, I mean, you're giving us anecdotal stuff, but if we've got once a year at least a sight of your complement, and it'd be the same for the police, but I'll mention that when we get to the police. The other thing was the RTCs, and being a long-standing member, it's always been an issue in campaigns and stuff. And you only need one bad accident like we had at the Glen several years ago where the statistics go shoot through the roof. But it was interesting to read your commentary that most of the accidents are on the busier A roads. So it's how you coordinate that. I mean, I know I've raised this question before about the I'll call it the speed camera, but it's a safety camera. I get told off by Stuart. Which tends to sit on the A74, A75, A75. But then there's a lot of motorway stuff. And if I'm just wondering how we coordinate as a partnership organisation to target the A roads, and I imagine it's the main A75. The thing I'd like to see once a year is a wee map of Dumfries and Galloway with where the accidents are. You know, just a wee red dot, just to get an idea of where maybe hotspots are, and give the members at least an overview of where we could help you locally or even here through this committee. So that'd be useful going forward. You know, 'cause it's all right here, you know, but you kind of get a mental picture, you know, so that'd be useful if that could be done. I don't know how easy that could be done, but I'm sure nowadays with computer graphics and that, you could pinpoint where you attended RTCs and stuff. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any comment?
Well, to try and allay your fears, the Road Safety Partnership, we have a number of partners together at the moment at a strategic level. What we're trying to do, and there's actually a meeting tomorrow of the tactical group, we're looking to reinvigorate the annual plan, which involves road transport and other agencies so that we can actually do what you're asking there, identify where we're having these accidents, and then through, it may not be through education or enforcement, it may be through some other means, whether it's a change to the road, change to the set of the road, that we can deal with those. So those things are all on the table. When the tactical group meet tomorrow, one of the remits of the group is to put that annual plan together. We need to look at the 4, 5 or 6 E's, depending on which documentation you look at, but they will meet the government standard or the government's targets. And we will be looking at the education, encouragement, and we will be looking to engineer various bits and pieces out within the southwest of Scotland, but that obviously relies on our partners and how they're going to go about that. But we can certainly feedback, whether it be individually or on a monthly or on the 6 monthly report, where we are with that and how we're getting on with that, if that's of any use to you.
Okay, Ryan? Yeah. Stephen?
Thank you, Chair. It's really a question about benchmarking or seeing how this fits in with other sort of areas, as it were. So when we look at the summary of the performance indicators, you could look at the red arrows and think, okay, there's been targets that haven't been met. Obviously, there's a lot of narrative actually explaining where there's trends or where there's been actions taken, etc. So that's reassuring. Obviously, the one where there's been fatalities and the fact that there wasn't information available to share between agencies, in that case, obviously that's tragic, and obviously that's why there's meetings to take place to try and improve that in future. But in terms of benchmarking with other areas in Scotland, it's hard to really see how, is there a wider trend that this is part of a bigger picture of, or because obviously the focus here is in Dumfries and Galloway, but how can we get a sort of sense of where that fits in nationally in terms of, like, for example, fatal and non-fatal casualties or false alarms, for example? Is that a sort of national trend, or is it just something specific here?
The reports that we actually conduct are specific to this area. I think it's very difficult, depending on your socio-demographic, what type of people, where you've got them. In the Central Belt, Glasgow, we've looked at some of the areas in relation to our LSO area, and because of the difference of people within those areas and the difference of where they live in, I mean, we're predominantly rural. We could benchmark against maybe some of the rural communities, but it doesn't give a true picture of what we're doing. I think our aim is to look at how we've performed in the past and improve year on year by looking at what we are doing. If we start comparing with others, personally for me, it muddies the water in that, although somebody's got 6 fatalities, for me, 3 fatalities is too much in this area, and I'd rather target on what we do in this area. There is, on our intranet or via the Scottish website, data with regard to this type of information across the country that can be accessed. But as I say, as a group, we're concentrating on our area, the southwest of Scotland, to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our community.
Yeah, no, I fully appreciate that, and I think I would have hoped that would be the answer you were given. I think as a scrutiny committee, though, one of the things that we're, I suppose, challenged with is to ask about what sort of benchmarking there is, and that's part of the role of the scrutiny committee. So I'm just wondering how that, I think we used to be compared with Fife because we were sort of coterminous, etc., unitary authorities, as it were, and that matched the kind of the structure of the fire service at the time prior to the national service. So how do we then, and maybe this is for the chair and the officers within the council, how do we ensure that we can ask the right questions that get the answers in terms of the benchmarking that we might be looking for as a scrutiny committee? So that's maybe just one through yourself, Chair.
I think I'll put that
For me, Chair. Sorry, Chair, if I may. The local plans for all the various areas are online and they are accessible, so you could carry out that comparison. One thing we do internally as an organisation, our Community Safety Department, our Prevention and Protection Department, we are constantly benchmarked against the other areas with regard to our points totals for home safety visits, how many we do we hit high risk, medium risk, low risk, particularly with our schools education programmes. That's compared with the other areas to make sure that, given the number of staff that we've got, we are completing as much, if not more, of the same as another group with the same number of staff. So we do have internal benchmarks, and as my colleague pointed out to me, the local plans are there available to scrutinise if you need that information to look at.
Okay, Stephen?
I think, obviously, as a local authority, we have our own benchmarking sort of families, if you like, and we'll compare. Obviously, no two areas are the same, and we have a sort of particular rural area here, which won't be the same as another rural area elsewhere in Scotland. But that's why there's, within this council, we have sort of families of similar authorities, depending on what we're trying to benchmark. And I was just wondering, as an exercise, is there information readily available that this committee could scrutinise, just to get a picture in terms of where we sit within the national picture, for maybe a selection of some of the indicators that we're actually looking at?
I don't know, I'll maybe turn to Derek. Is there any sort of opportunities for that?
Thanks, Chair. Certainly the indication from colleagues from Fire and Rescue would suggest the information is clearly available. I think the challenge becomes, as Councillor Thompson's indicated, providing comparator authorities that it's worth benchmarking with. If the committee are agreeable, what we could request from colleagues in Fire and Rescue is, based on the comparative information they currently do in terms of benchmarking, to possibly bring forward a proposal on how in future the plan could be benchmarked against those relevant comparator authorities, particularly given the comments in terms of rural areas being different. So that's an option for the committee to consider today, Chair.
Would members be happy to see that and via a recommendation? Okay, some word on it? Yeah. Lucy, did you? We'll put that in the recommendation. Any other members' questions? Then we'll go to the recommendations. To scrutinise the performance report from Scottish Fire and Rescue Service for Dumfries and Galloway from 1st April 2015 to 29th of February 2016, as detailed in the appendix. Lucy, would you like to add something in there?
Just the words perhaps that also the committee would like to put in, have further information on benchmarking.
And the point I made about maybe an annual plan of where the RTCs are, that was agreed.
Yeah.
And staffing levels across the piece was also agreed.
Yeah, members happy for that then as well? Okay, Lucy. To go through these papers. Thank you. Then we'll go to item 5. Police Scotland Dumfries and Galloway Local Plan 2014-2017, 11-month performance update, 1st April 2015 to 29th of February 2016. Report by Director of Communities. Before we go on to this, I would like to place on record our thanks to Chief Superintendent Michael Leslie, who is retired and taken up a career in journalism, I think, and thank him for the support to this subcommittee and the leadership of V Division. Unfortunately, his replacement, Chief Superintendent Gary Ritchie, who will now be local commander for V Division, is on annual leave, and we welcome back Superintendent Graham Galloway, who will be representing him today. And I think George Graham would like to come forward as well in case there's anything you'd like to hear from SPA. Yeah. Have you anything you'd like to say at the report?
Yeah, the top tier has all left and they've retired. So Gary Ritchie gives his apologies, couldn't make it today. He's on leave and he was away abroad somewhere. Irvin Watson, who some of you will know from Chief Inspector over his time at Stranraer and in Dumfries, he's now the temporary superintendent for operations based at Lorbourne Street, and myself, I've taken over from Bill Sturgeon, who used to be the partnership and service delivery superintendent. So in some ways there's some change, in others I'm just back after 2 years. I don't know if I'm any better looking or wiser, but here I am. So, no, okay, I thought I'd ask. You have, members have in front of them the report in relation to the performance. So you'll see it's from the 1st of April 2015 to the 29th of February 2016. And I'm just going to touch on the appendix, which really talks about our performance indicators and also what our priority areas were for Dumfries and Galloway over the last year. You'll be glad, it's quite a lengthy report, but you'll be glad I'm not going to touch on absolutely everything, but I will touch on one or two areas that are causing us a bit of concern and that I'm quite sure will be of interest to yourself. You'll see that Group 1 violent crime is up 8 crimes, albeit our serious assaults are up 10. But the one that's causing us the most concern is our common assaults. They're up from 1,235, they're up to another 247 crimes compared to the same period last year. As a result of that, the division over the year have reported on this increase, and they've created a violence reduction plan, which is looking at a targeted weekly analysis of where these assaults are occurring, the targeting of known offenders and victim checks as well. Partnership working through our partners, particularly within the licensing trade, because we know that a large percentage of these assaults are as a result of alcohol consumption. Some of the 10 increase in serious assaults you'll see in the report is probably down to slight changes in the way that serious assault is recorded. Previously, it used to be a serious assault was really a broken bone, whereas now it's injury that may cause scarring, the word being may, to be honest. And that most of that is accounted for that. What I would say is the detection rate for serious assault is it's like 1% below 100%, so it's very, very good. And even common assaults, 9 out of 10 common assaults are detected, so our detection rate is very good. What we need to do is get in front of the curve, though, and prevent it in the first place. Some of the difficulties with that, and some of the reason we're given real focus on domestic violence is, a third of our common assaults occur within private dwellings and is domestic related, and that's why we continue to give a lot of focus in that area. Antisocial behaviour is up, and a lot of that is in relation, I would suggest, to vandalism, and I'll touch on that slightly later on in the report, but we continue to work with our multi-agency partners. Again, it's about targeting known prolific offenders, and where we can take both civil and criminal restrictions on these individuals, we do so within a multi-agency framework. And again, very close working with our licensing partners in relation to that. And part of that strategy as well is to be much more kind of intelligence-led focus on our stop search procedures. We know who, the people that are committing antisocial behaviour, and it's about targeting these individuals rather than a blanket stop search policy, which we don't have. And as a result, almost a third of our stops, because they're targeted, produce something, whether it be that they're in possession of alcohol that shouldn't be, or an offensive weapon, or some other thing like that. But we do have a very high success rate compared to the rest of Scotland in relation to targeting these individuals. Another priority area, substance misuse. It's remaining almost static, to be honest, as compared to previous years. Our drug supply cases, 153 this year, 154 last year, so slightly down. And unfortunately, there's no movement in our drugs deaths. We continue to work with our partners within the Drug Death Review Group, but it's still 11 individuals over the last couple of years who've lost their lives due to substance misuse. The figure this year, we're still waiting on confirmation of 5 to come back to confirm that, but it looks very much like it's been a substance misuse behind that, unfortunately. Our other priority in relation to crime, the area that's given us concern certainly is theft by housebreaking. It continues to be very challenging for us. There's absolutely no doubt that we're being targeted within the division by travelling criminals, both from the northeast of England and wider afield across Europe in some cases. We continue to work very closely with a forensic strategy, and you'll be aware that we put a lot of media releases out, and it's about getting people to lift the phone at the time to tell us when people in their community are out of place or they're noticing something suspicious. And we'll continue to do that, but that's a real focus for us within the CID in particular on the theft by housebreaking. But we have seen an increase across the division by 33. Up to 269 housebreakings, be that commercial or domestic dwellings, but that's a particular concern for us, and it's particularly difficult to investigate because we know that a large percentage of these are coming from out with the area, and that's where our forensic strategy is really, really important. The other one that, if you look at the kind of headline figure, vandalism has seen a quite significant increase, up 347 crimes compared to the same period last year. It's a bit of an anomaly, this one, insofar as last year, for some reason, we had a very, very low year, so we're comparing year on year, and certainly we're up compared to last year. There's no getting away from that, but we're not quite sure why we were so low last year and it's gone up this year. If you look at our kind of 3-year average, we're no different, to be perfectly honest. So it looks probably worse than it actually is. We've just no idea why we kind of dropped so much last year, and I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately, but it's certainly something that's causing us concern. We're seeing patterns emerging, particularly, I have to say, in Dumfries just now, where cars are getting vandalised, and we are targeting the known offenders. There's no doubt there's young people involved. We have reported a number of young people, but one night it'll be wiper blades, another night it'll be car mirrors, and another night, most recently, it's been ripping off number plates. Now, they're not trying to steal them, just vandalising them, and we have an action plan, particularly in Dumfries now, that's targeting specifically vandalism and youth disorder. And we've had some instances, unfortunately, just in the last couple of nights up northwest Dumfries area, Cuckoo Bridge area, where we've put extra patrols on, and we have arrested 2 or 3 individuals as a result of that. But that will remain quite a serious focus, because that has an effect on our overall crime rates. Public protection, I have already touched on domestic abuse. That is showing an upward increase, although you see in the report, we think a lot of that is because we've continued focus on that and confidence in reporting, and there's no doubt about that we are getting more and more reports from sexual abuse in particular from 10, 20, 30 years ago, historical, and I think that's just a confidence. We know there's been a lot of media coverage in relation to that, and it's just a confidence in people coming forward in relation to that. So whilst it is going up, it is of concern, but there is a very much a historical nature to an awful lot of that, and it's probably correct to emphasise that the vast majority of these occur within the home, and unfortunately occur between people that know each other, rather than a kind of stranger type scenario, unfortunately. I know road safety was touched on by the fire brigade. It is a bit of a mixed bag, unfortunately. We've seen an increase in 4 fatalities this year compared to the last year, albeit that our serious injuries are down 28 and our slight injuries are up. It's already been highlighted. It's A-class roads that are causing us the problem. It's not the minor roads. It's A-class roads, and it's something that we are continuing to work with. The fire brigade touched on the road safety partnership, and that's certainly where we take our work through for that. Proactive wise, you'll see that, our speeding offences, we know that the faster you go, the more likely you are to seriously injure yourself. Those offences, the detections for that are up. And you'll see that drink driving's dramatically down, and that's just in line with a national picture, can I say, in relation to the new licensing laws, drink driving laws that came in there. That's probably all I want to highlight in the report at this stage, and I'm more than happy to take any questions from the councillors. Chair.
Thanks, Graham. Members' questions? Richard?
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to apologise for being a bit late. There was a wide load on the A75, but it wasn't you, Chair.
No, it wasn't me in a motorbike. Thanks for your comments.
Another vote lost. It's a mixed bag, this report. There's quite a few positive things there, especially on the robbery side, and the welcome improvement on the stop and search statistics there. Should be complimented for our being the best in Scotland, but then again, we aren't really doing well as a nation in the stop and search. It's something we have to improve on and be more intelligence-led. There's quite a challenge for the new team, and we wish you well in your violence reduction plan and tackling vandalism. And you've explained why the figures may seem to be larger than we would like. I think the last bullet point on page 311, where the increase of 40.3% in offending by young people, that is probably the greatest source of concern there. And at previous meetings, we've highlighted the need for police and other agencies like the council to engage with the young people more and try and divert young people away from crime.
Yeah, thanks for these comments. Yeah, absolutely. Youth offending is showing an upward trend. We are working very closely with our partners. You'll be aware that we're creating the Risk and Concern Information Sharing Hub to bring together the police, education, social work, etc., to actually target known offenders and really to put much more emphasis on the kind of preventative, because really by the time we start booking people and young people, we've kind of lost it, unfortunately. And that's that whole emphasis and drive in future years for that. We do, as I say, work very closely with other partners. We know, for example, care homes and things like that, the very, very challenging individuals, and we're working very closely with local authorities, private care providers, and indeed the Care Inspectorate to try and target that. And a senior police officer sits on the weekly meeting of the Children's Senior Executive Group, which was in fact held every Tuesday. It was held this morning, and that's having an influence as well. And it's just about that information sharing and about targeting the correct individuals.
Thank you, Alistair.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like particular to focus on the road safety, and it's gratifying to see that in many respects it's moving in the right direction. And my particular hate about people using mobile phones, having nearly been run down once by somebody using a mobile phone, it's gratifying to see that reduction. However, there are a couple of areas I can see. We've already alluded to the increase in number of people killed, which is sad. Just a question about that, and another question about speeding offences, if I may. The number of people killed, we've alluded to in the commentary that we're not quite sure how that happened. Could we speculate and say it's people on long journeys that have suffered sleep deprivation and have just made a catastrophic misjudgment and wandered into the wrong lane? As regards speeding offences, one advantage of using a council pool car is that you cannot exceed the speed limit in the built-up area, and I got a warning once and I've never exceeded it again. It's good training, but there's always somebody up your back if you're going at 30 miles an hour. Are most of these detections, these offences and speeding, do they occur in built-up areas, in villages and in town? I'm all for encouraging people to obey the speed limit. So that's a couple of questions, if I may. One about the fatalities, another about speeding.
Yeah, I mean, after any fatality, there's quite a huge amount of analysis goes into that as to what's caused that. And I mean, our most recent fatalities, unfortunately, just seems to have been that the vehicle has crossed over, and it's not been people on particularly long journeys. I have to say, has there been some sort of distraction internally? We don't know. There's a lack of eyewitnesses, unfortunately, to 2 or 3 of these. But there's no apparent reason why that vehicle would suddenly cross over into the carriageway. Yeah, absolutely. We know in previous serious accidents, fatigue has caused a big issue, but certainly in the most recent ones, it's not been suggested that that's the case. You could put it down to, were people using phones, were people changing, I was going to say CDs, you don't really get CDs in car, MP3 players and these kind of things, we really don't know. And that investigation is ongoing. There's no absolute pattern, unfortunately, in relation to the fatalities on our roads. But it is something we are aware. A lot of the fatalities have been people from out with the region as well. And again, we've looked very closely to understand, is it from a particular area, they're travelling from a particular area? And again, there's no set pattern, because we do 2 or 3 years ago, we had a big issue with bikers on I think it was A702, and they were from the northeast, and we really targeted our road safety partnership in the northeast to get that message across about the dangers of that of the road. It was maybe exciting to go on a bike, but it had its own particular issues and slow moving farm traffic and things. So it is something we look at very carefully, but unfortunately it's very difficult to actually get that message across. The second thing regarding speeding, I don't have the breakdown. The vast majority of these, I would suggest, are probably in the A-class roads, because that's where fatalities are occurring, rather than the towns and villages. But it is a mixed bag. We do target urban areas, built-up areas, because we know that's of concern, and there tends to be far more pedestrian traffic, quite clearly, within an urban environment than sitting at the side of the 701 at St Anne's, for example. So it is a bit of a mixed bag, but we do know that the contributory factor to a lot of our accidents is speeding, and the faster you go, the more likely you are to have a serious injury if you do crash.
Okay, Jack.
Thank you, John. It was noticed on Friday at the area committee that we used to say how young policemen were. Now we're saying how young policemen are that are retiring. Not you, Graham. You'll always be young. A couple of things. One was it's something that I bring up quite regularly. It's people reported for dangerous driving. The number of vehicles jumping the lights at the top of the sands. I mean, I've counted while I'm in the queue going across down Buccleuch Street, at 3, 4, and sometimes 5 coming round after the lights have went to green for the preceding ones. I'm just wondering if anything's been done about that.
I certainly know our traffic inspector has been in contact with the roads department through the road safety partnership. There's been some monitoring of the lights and the timings, sequencing of those lights. There is a delay because of the length between turning, particularly from the White Sands, right into Buccleuch Street. Absolutely. The monitoring we have done has not shown that there's a particular problem with the timing, it's always difficult to catch people, shall we say, jumping red lights when you're standing with a bright yellow jacket and a white hat on. But we have targeted that area because we are aware it is of concern, and there is some discussions going on within the partnership, and particularly with the roads authority, just in relation to the sequencing of the lights. And I know it's getting looked at.
Come back in.
We are certainly aware of the issue in Gordon Street, and there's been a number of discussions with residents there. I mean, I suppose it's back down to priorities within the police service and what we can and can't tackle. You've already touched on the sort of deregulation or decriminalisation aspect under the Road Traffic Act for parking, but I accept as well there's issues for the council. The Chief Constable when Police Scotland was formed was very much of the view that it was a mixed bag across Scotland. Some forces did have traffic wardens, some didn't. And the decision at that time was taken was it would not be a National Police Scotland priority. We do tackle obstruction, we do book people for obstruction, but people parking in within parking bays over their limit is not something that we give particularly attention to be perfectly honest. I don't particularly see that changing. I think, I've already discussed some of the issues and priorities that we have within the region, in particular in relation to, as I say, violence and housebreaking. And to me, that's where the priority should be and where our focus should be in relation to that. It tends to be, if it's an obstruction, we will deal with it, but if it's not, unfortunately, we tend not to deal with it.
George, would you have anything to say now? I'll put you on the
No, I don't think so, Chair. I think the superintendent's answered that exactly as I would have expected him.
Yeah, because it's a very contentious, very difficult one here in the town since we moved to the new force. Craig?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to what Graham was talking about earlier on, and in this particular instance, the housebreaking within the areas, and his comments about the still encouraging the communities to phone in with evidence that they may have, etc., to help them detect these crimes. I certainly feel that at the moment, and I'm talking parochial, etc., because I don't have that experience in other members' areas, but certainly in my own locality, there's been a number of incidences lately, and quite serious incidences, where the public have contacted the police to say that they had information relating to these instances, and there's been no follow-up from the police. I know there's one instance there, a member of the public, and I'll not go into details here, maybe speak with Graham later on, but she actually had photographs of a vehicle that was likely to have been used in these crimes, and had also took that to the attention of the police. Now, that has never been followed up, and these were reported in the paper as quite serious crimes within the area, etc. So there's information out there from the community, and there's more than this particular instance that's been reported to me from a member of the public, and the police are not coming back to the members of the public and chasing that up, going back to speak to them, get that information, and helping them towards the detection of a particular crime. Now, the reaction to that is very much so that the confidence from the community within Police Scotland is diminishing quite drastically. And I know that we as members and the police have always reiterated at community meetings that the public need to come forward with information to help them detect crimes, etc., and build up that partnership between the community and Police Scotland. That seems to be failing. Now, again, I can't talk national level or whatever because it's not my experience, but certainly within my locality, that is diminishing quite considerably, and the public are starting to take the opposite type of reaction as well. They keep asking us to phone it in, we phone it in, and they don't come back on it. So, there's a big issue there with community policing, and that follows on from as well. That may have an issue with the increase in youth offending as well, because we're not seeing the police out on the streets doing the rounds where they can talk to the youngsters in a general day-to-day basis and talk to them and get confidence of the young people, and therefore hopefully help try and prevent these crimes by having that relationship with the youth of the areas. And I think that all ties in. So with that, and with the lack again of community policemen at community meetings, community councils, etc., that has virtually stopped within my area. And I know, Chair, I brought it up time and time again at these meetings, and there has been a consultation on that out as well. I realise that, but it's just not happening at the moment. And I think the Police Scotland's relationship within my community is certainly decreasing, and that is something that maybe, George, you can take up as well in your role in the SPA, that the community policing aspect is falling away, and I think that's a real danger.
Yeah, Councillor Figure, I mean, I'm genuinely disappointed to hear that, and particularly I'll happily talk to you about that one instance. I can't comment on that certainly, but the more general issue regarding community confidence, that's something we can never ever lose, and I think it's one of the absolute strengths of Dumfries and Galloway. We are very focused within our communities, and indeed the draft HMI report makes a comment on that, I believe. But it's ultimately we live, we work, and we share our communities with everybody else, and it's really important that we get the support of communities. And I know we do get support, and we get a lot of support, but where that's diminishing, that's something we absolutely need to tackle. We've invested heavily and always have done as a first a force and a division in our community policing. I know there's been some changes to the community councils, and there is a consultation out in relation to that. Some of that difficulty was that a lot of these meetings, were held in the same night, and it was just physically impossible to get people there. But we continue to invest in our community policing, and in fact, I've just put another advert out seeking applicants across the region for replacing people that are moving on or leaving or whatever. So that continues to be a strong focus, as does our campus officers within our schools. We have maintained school liaison officers and campus officers actually based within most of our secondary schools to actually engender that level of communication between young people and the police. So it is something I absolutely get what you're saying, but I'm disappointed to hear that, and it's something, it's a real focus for us in relation to that. And I think it's a focus as well for our new Chief Constable and the comments that he's made. And I kind of liked his tale that he's never had a letter of thanks for his performance, but he's had lots on his level of service. And I think that's where the absolute push is coming from and needs to come from to make up that ground that I think, to be perfectly frank, we lost a wee bit in the creation of Police Scotland.
Thanks, Chair. And maybe Graham wouldn't want to comment on this, but I wonder if, while we know that the officer number has been retained since the formation of Police Scotland, and that hasn't diminished at all, but backroom staff has. And I wonder if there's, because of that, our frontline officers are spending more time doing backroom staff work than they are actually being out in the street policing.
There's certainly been a reduction within Dumfries and Galloway. Some of that, I think, was as a consequence and inevitable of bringing 8 different forces together, and their back office functions were replicated 8 times, and there's certainly been some drawn together of resources into a more, I don't want to use the word centralised, but into a more cohesive unit, shall we say. And not all of them are within Dumfries and Galloway, as you're well aware.
I'm quite happy for him to use the word centralised.
I totally agree with you saying, Craig. I'm experienced at the minute what value a good community cop will bring, especially to more rural areas. So I totally agree with what you're saying. Ronnie?
Thanks. I've got several points to make, so I'll go them through one at a time, and then we'll keep. Something that's not within the report is cybercrime, internet crime. And if you see all the stuff in the press about sexting for youngsters, is a big issue now. Personally speaking, I get phone calls from people in India asking me to log on my computer and also all the viruses for me. It's a lot of fun till I tell them it's a council computer and we've got our own firewall, and they hang up on me. Anyway. But there's a serious issue there about cybercrime. You see, people getting access to the bank accounts by unavoidably putting in some detail somewhere. I just wondered I know maybe that's a national thing rather than a local thing, but for education, we could deliver that here in Dumfries and Galloway. The other one was staffing levels. We used to get, I think I raised it with the fire service, local. We still have some community cops in Annan, so we're pretty lucky. However, there's a lot of new people. We used to get a monthly report or whatever saying who was here, who was not. I'd appreciate that sometimes the forces supplemented by others outside the Dumfries and Galloway area. My third point was working in partnership, and I know in Annan there was an issue a couple of weekends in a row where gangs of teenagers were causing problems in various parts of Annan, and they coordinated with the community safety team and some people from out with the area, officers without the area. It seems to have been successful. What we don't know, and the point I'm raising this is, the partnership working, you know, I know that because I was asked about it and I raised it with the local inspector. But as a committee, we don't know how successful this is, you know. And the community safety team have come under criticism lately. I think the TV programmes helped a wee bit. You know, when you see somebody running after somebody with a cigarette, that's certainly, anyway, that's been flippant. But just to get a handle on that, that would be useful. And the fourth point I wanted to make was the complaints. As you know, Bill Sturgeon was the guy that George used to sit on that. It was a very successful committee. We don't know now how, okay, we've got the raw data, 185 complaints, but I know it's dealt centrally, but is there any way of unpicking that just so we could see, you know, there's no real meaning behind the statistic. I know I'm trying to reinvent the wheel and I can't, and you've got to move forward, but one of the things that gave me and others that sat in that wee committee assurance was the openness and honesty of everybody involved in that. And we could see that a lot of it was malicious, a lot of it was meant well, but it didn't, you know, so there's a lot of background information that we seem to be losing now. I just wondered how, maybe George can answer that because he maybe sits on complaints, I don't know. But so those are the 4 points I wanted to make, Chair, thanks.
Certainly, you're absolutely right. Internet-related crime is on the increase constantly, and it features even a lot through our crimes and ASB and things like that in relation to misusing Facebook and various other social media sites. If I could close Facebook down, that'd be quite good, I think, you know. But no, it is an issue. It is very technical. One of the absolute advantages of Police Scotland is we've got the very, very best people in IT and in that whole cyber crime arena. It is quite it's located in Gartcosh, the crime campus. They're recognised experts in that field, and it's something that we do tackle. At a local level, though, the difficulty we have is we're constantly putting messages out about people been taken in by internet scams and things like that, and we just need to keep pushing that message out that if you've won the Spanish lottery and you've never bought a lottery ticket, something should be kind of ringing, and that it's not quite right. Or if stuff's for sale, it's just too good to be true. It probably is too good to be true. And even this morning, we were hearing of somebody sending money abroad. No idea who they're sending it to, why they're sending it, that kind of thing. And some of the difficulty is with some of the victims is they don't want to believe that it's a scam. You know, they think that this person on the other end of the line is in love with them or whatever else. And it's just another medium, unfortunately, but it is truly international, and it's very, very difficult to target. And it's really about getting the message about making sure that your internet security is up to date, that you are considering what you're doing online, that once you go online, you're very, very public to the rest of the world. What details are you publishing? So we have constant things, particularly aimed at young people, I have to say, through Big World and things like that, where we have internet security. We work with our partners to ensure that message is getting across about the kind of profiles that people are putting online and their security settings and things like that. And we do hold workshops in relation to that. So that is a big area for us. Staffing levels, yes, we've published these before. You did touch on the difficulty is, yes, we have a divisional staffing number, but we are aided by a regional staffing number from the West, and indeed a national staffing level. And a good example of that would be, heaven forbid, murders and things like that. We bring in our major incident teams, investigation teams from a national level to deal with a local issue, and those teams are integrated to deal with that. So it's about flex, I suppose, within the structure to say what is a local issue, what is a national issue, and that we can pull on these national resources, in which we do. and even down to the fact if we are suffering from antisocial behaviour and that, we can bring in additional resources from the West and indeed nationally if required. And we see that particularly at football matches and things like that, that will bring in horses and bits and pieces. Partnership, I can't stress enough the need for partnership work, and you touched specifically on the community safety team. If they've had a hard time, I feel quite sorry for them, because they actually do a really, really good job, and we work very, very closely with them. We task jointly with them. We will target issues. And I touched on, for example, the particular vandalism issue earlier within North West Dumfries. We've already had discussions and meetings with the community wardens in that area, and it's just about the kind of joint patrolling and about the targeted patrolling within the area, because they can come at it from a slightly different angle. And not just them, community learning and development, we know they've put additional kind of on-street workers into that area to engage with young people and stuff. So there is a whole range of people that we can tap into, and equally they tap into us. So it's a two-way thing to actually work at because invariably if it's an issue for us, it's an issue for the community wardens and vice versa. So they do a really important job as far as I'm concerned, and we do work very closely with them. Complaints, I don't have a straight answer. The figures are published. I'm quite sure if you're looking for a more analytical breakdown of the complaints, it's certainly something I can take back and ask for. I don't know how these are produced, but I can certainly inquire into that. All we really get back is that there's no identifiable trends where individual officers are perhaps coming to our attention more. There is a proactive strategy in place to sit these officers down, to go through the complaints, to understand, what's causing these complaints and things like that. So there is trigger mechanisms built into the system that allows us to do that. But as for yourself, I can certainly look into a slightly better analytical breakdown of the level of complaints if that's what you wish. Thank you.
Any other questions, members? Stephen?
Thanks again, Chair. Just before I get cracking on with the questions, you see there's a table just towards the end where it's got improved road safety through an enhanced programme, and it's a blank table. I'm just wondering if there's been an omission there that you might be able to...
I had thought I'd got away with that, and unfortunately I noticed it about the same time as you, sir, so I don't have a reason why that's blank, and I do apologise.
Just to crack on with the questions then. Councillor Ogilvy's touched on a couple of things already. One of them, just building on that, is to do with the extortion. And there's a wee bit of narrative in the report there that just mentions how, although there's local people affected by this because of the nature of internet activity, that extortion can take place from people out with, and obviously internationally, using the internet as a medium. So it's slightly different from being duped into a sort of a confidence trick, if you like, online, but that there's actually extortion as well. I mean, how does that get, you obviously recognise it, but how does that then get escalated, and where's that being looked at, would be the first question. The second one, again, it's on partnership working, and I'm just sort of wondering, so probably you can't really answer it today maybe, but what sort of value does V Division put on the benefits from CCTV? And the reason why I ask is obviously because through the Community Safety Partnership and monies that the Council has in terms of developing this, and obviously we visited the control area recently, well, a wee while ago now, and there was a conspicuous lack of CCTV screens for the Dumfries and Galloway division that they were able to see. Now I know there's issues with the sort of SWAN network, as it were, or the wider area network, etc. Digital and technical issues that may sort of prevent or provide a challenge to that. But how are we working, or how are you working in partnership with ourselves, for example, and what sort of contribution are you, how would you attach a value to the contribution in terms of that priority? It's really just to sort of get your take on that. And the third thing was, I've lost my notes there. Oh yeah, cultivation and supply of drugs. is there a breakdown in the cultivation and supply and production? Because obviously in the narrative there you've got 39.5% Annandale and Estiles were actually seized in the M74, which is helpful because that gives a better picture of you know, where those figures are coming from. Cultivation and production are things that would be very much in the region or not, because things are grown or produced somewhere. So is there a way that that could be broken down a wee bit better to help understand, you know, that bag of results, if you like? Because supply could be anything, it could come from anywhere, it could be, you know, traffic through the region, as it were, but cultivation and production are very much in a place, and they're either here or they're not. So is that something that can be broken down a wee bit further? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, the online extortion, we are very aware of that, and it is a crime that is investigated. There's been some high profile media coverage of people who particularly have posted sexual content, I suppose, of themselves online and thereafter suffered from extortion. Now, whether that be from ex-partners or indeed from abroad, and we've seen a few examples of that, certainly as a result. That is something that is investigated, and it's something that we will report on, providing we can you know, get hold of the person. Now, you'll be well aware, I know you have an IT background, there is techniques we can use to track people to potentially identify where machines are being accessed from or who's actually accessing IT-based machinery. It's too technical for me, but it's something that's absolutely monitored and is investigated when we become aware of that. You'll be aware of the child exploitation online scenario as well, where there is an active international monitoring of that, and when we get notification, it comes through particular channels into the UK and through Police Scotland, and these are followed up where possible to prevent that, because ultimately that has to be a priority about the protection of children from exploitation online. And we do know there's predators, and I think that's why it all comes back to our kind of preventative approach and our education about what young people in particular are putting online. And it is quite horrendous what they put online and what they get duped into and what they believe, who they're talking to. And we've seen examples historically where, you know, it's the 15-year-old boyfriend who turns out to be a 48-year-old man. You know, I mean, we know that goes on, and that's something that we do give a lot of priority to. CCTV, the benefits are huge to us. Any crime inquiry, and certainly major crime inquiry, you'll always see now a CCTV strategy. Now that's a trawl, be it from public CCTV or private CCTV. I know there's work ongoing, and I'm careful what I'm saying here because Elsa Freeman's sitting behind me, but there is a CCTV strategy that's been developed that's looking very seriously at a security hub. I'm not quite sure the correct terminology for that, and I know there's some work going on within the council and with ourselves in relation to the siting of that hub. As I say, CCTV is a major issue for us, and it's something that I think the public at large are quite content with in relation to that. No, it doesn't go to governors as far as I understand, and I think that's because of some digital technical issues, and that's why we're looking at a Dumfries and Galloway wide setup that others, or certainly similar to other council areas in Scotland that I'm aware of, have, where you could bring in CCTV and combine that with alarm systems, with care call, that kind of package. So I certainly know those discussions are ongoing, but I can't really say much more than that, unfortunately, because I don't know the whole ins and outs of that. The cultivation and supply, the vast majority will be supply cases. We've not had, touch wood, a major cultivation in recent times, but we are very alive to that. If you wish to break down on that, I'm quite sure it could be achieved. I would certainly look at that, about how easy that would be to actually show the difference between cultivation, production and the supply, if that would be useful. Yeah.
Just a wee comment on the CCTV. I think what struck me was if people are phoning 101 and getting through to those with the knowledge of Dumfries and Galloway at the call centre, it would have been, it would have added to their armoury of information, I think, if they'd been able to have some kind of sight of certain sort of key locations. And I think that was what really struck me in terms of that's something that they don't have. So I'm just wondering, is there something that is Police Scotland prioritising, given the importance of CCTV as a tool and as a source of evidence and monitoring, etc.? You know, is that something that you can invest in, or you can prioritise in that way, or is it something that the partnership would extend more than just, you know, supporting, but is it something that would be invested in?
It's certainly something we shared just now about volume crime and you know, key localities and things, and the strategy that was brought in for CCTV within the Dumfries and Galloway was very much about I suppose the need for where CCTV should be rather than who could pay, which had perhaps been the case previously. And the sighting of these cameras is down to primarily police statistics, but other agencies as well put in these statistics to actually show where the sighting of the cameras are best placed and where they will be of most benefit to the bigger percentage of the population. So they're quite often through main thoroughfares and things like that, so they'll capture cars, but there's also key areas as well that we put cameras because there's perhaps a vulnerability within that neighbourhood for whatever reason. So that is brought together already through our analytical work to actually demonstrate that we can site these cameras in the correct place.
I'm just going to bring George in there to comment on the CCTV.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Thompson, you raise a very important strategic issue, I think, and I know that the SPA has been running a project around who owns, funds and maintains CCTV at a national level. How do we actually get it? Because there is a public space CCTV across Scotland is a very mixed picture. What I don't know is where that project is at, when it's likely to report, or what the involvement is, but I will endeavour now to find out within the SPA offices, and we'll get that back to you. But I think it's a very important question for all of Scotland, and Graham's just outlined how important it is to the police service here locally.
I think when we visited the control centre, it showed you the real advantages the areas that had this in place had compared to what we have ourselves. So I think that sort of brought it home a bit. So any updates of that would be appreciated, Joe. Any other questions, members?
Just an observation, I was at the control centre as well, and it was a very informative exercise. And I did note that they were able to, you were able to identify where each police officer was, but and that's useful. But the gap was, as my colleagues have been saying, the CCTV as backup information.
Thank you. Members, we'll go to the recommendations. Scrutinise performance report from police.
Just the two appendices that were referred to, the consultation, I've read them and I totally agree with them. I just wanted to ask members if there are any questions on them before we went to the recommendation.
That's the next item, Ron. Yes, I explained that at the start. It was a mistake in the paper. We're coming to item 6 next. Yeah.
Straightforward, yeah.
Yeah. Right, I'll go to the recommendations for item 5 again. To scrutinise the performance report from Police Scotland for Dumfries and Galloway from 1st April 2015 to 29th of February 2016 as detailed in the appendix. Agreed? Thank you. Now we come to item 6. The Dumfries and Galloway Council responses to National Consultation report by Director of Communities. Andrew Reid, who was sitting in the corner with his pointed hat on, has now came forward and here to speak to the report and answer any questions may have. Andrew?
I haven't got anything to add to speak to the report. It was just to sort of raise the awareness with members in respect to the consultation, and we are getting more and more consultation coming in, and it is something that we as a council have obviously fought for, to receive consultation engagement from both Police Scotland and Scottish Fire and Rescue. Understanding that obviously the timing of which it comes in, out with committee process, that we go through a process where we circulate out draft response comments, and then we finalise and go through and sort of demonstrate the results today. So I'm happy to take any comments on the responses that are taken. Also, if people have got any sort of discussions on how they would like to take future consultation engagement forward.
Ronnie?
Sorry, I went a bit early there. And I blame the officers for that because they totally confused me over item 5 and 6. It wasn't my fault, Gov. And this, because this has been recorded, I have to correct myself here. No, to say what I said earlier, the 2 points. That what's written in here is excellent, and it captures what we've been saying over the last few months. And I would welcome the fact that we could sit down as a group and look at the consultations, because it's okay doing it over the internet or on email stuff, but you kind of tease out the same. If you've got officers and you've got other members there, and we can talk through what we really want, it would be a priority. So I don't want to add to the burden of members, but I mean, imagine it wouldn't happen every day, but I would welcome that.
Chair, I'm just to add, I mean, what could be a possibility is, as and when the consultations come in, that we could do sort of a quarterly workshop where we could sort of come together and discuss, what's in the consultation, and maybe potentially, if required, we could ask the local commander and the local senior officer from Police Scotland and Scottish Fire and Rescue if they can attend, so that we can actually have a discussion and work forward a preferred response, and then depending on what the wider engagement requires, we can include that as well.
Okay, right. Richard?
Yeah, I think it's a very good report. I think it captures the mood and spirit of people in Dumfries and Galloway. I'd like to concur with some of the things in there. And page 36 of Andy's report, he refers to the increasing centralisation of support services in the Central Belt, and the desire of local people that some of the work of Police Scotland should be based in this part of Scotland. The response to the review of our strategic police priorities, I think, also covers a number of important things. For example, on page 25, the visibility and accessibility of the police, that's very important, engaging with local people, and a service which focuses on local needs and demands, and not necessarily driven by national issues. A well-resourced police force in the area, and sensitive to the population and demographics. But I think probably page 26, the second bullet point, covers the main thing is the philosophy of policing by consent, and the police representatives referred to people picking up the phone and helping the police in their job, and I think that is a really important thing, that is by policing consent, and we wish them well on the new Chief Constable for Scotland, putting a more community-focused police force in place rather than one that's based on meeting certain targets.
Thanks, Richard. Any other questions from members? No. Then we'll go to the... George, have you any comments on the consultation?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I can maybe helpfully make one or two references to the report. Firstly, can I just thank you for your welcome earlier on, which I forgot to do. I'm delighted to be back here in the council offices at English Street. It feels like I've come home for some strange reason, but anyway, I'm delighted to be back. So thank you for the invite, and I'm delighted to be representing the SPA here at your local scrutiny meeting. I just wanted to mention briefly, the chair of the SPA has recently completed a review on governance and accountability within policing in Scotland. It was requested by the Cabinet Secretary for Justice, and it was reported to him on the 31st of March. I think Andrew informs me that that will be circulated to yourselves in the next few weeks. And I'm hoping that out of the 30 recommendations, what you will see is a reflection of some of the concerns you've raised here today. Those about local trust and accountability that Councillor Peacock raised, those about the changing demand of the service, which Councillor Ogilvie has talked about, the cybercrime and a whole lot of different things. Finance and budget will continue to be a considerable challenge for the police service, as it is across the public sector, but there is no question that there is still a great deal of work to do around the transformation of the back office, getting the right balance of the operational policing model that has the right number of police officers in the right localities, doing the right things, properly supported by skilled and very able police staff. That's the model that we have to try and achieve. We're quite a long way from that yet. So some of the consultation which Andrew is talking about, and which we will be delighted if you're involved in over the next few months, will follow on from some of the recommendations within Andrew Flanagan's review of police governance, but that does have a very strong focus on greater police localism and greater involvement of yourselves. Ronnie, you touched on complaints. I don't know whether you're psychic, if you've got the crystal ball. I do sit on the complaints committee. We have a workshop tomorrow, and your comment around some of the data which Graham said he will try and bring forward to you, I will raise that tomorrow and see what can be done. We at the national level still get the breakdowns, mostly because it's about what learning can be gained from the police organisation around complaints, both conduct ones and quality of service ones. And you're all experienced enough around the table here to know that if you get the data, you can ask the right questions and you can assist the police service in improving. And that's what it's all about. So that's roughly things that are happening at the national level. I'm going to make a plea here now with your forbearance, Chair. An advert went out 2 weeks ago for new members in the SPA. If you know people in public life or indeed in private life who you feel can contribute to the work of the SPA, we are looking for at least 3 in the spring and probably some more at the end of the year. Dumfries and Galloway, this wonderful part of the world where I was born, brought up, educated, and have lived for most of my life, does not have strong enough representation. So if you know good people who are willing to commit to at least 5 days a month on the police authority, please point them in the right direction. You've still got a couple of weeks before the advert closes. So that plea, I'm happy to answer questions around what the SP are up to just now, but with that plea for support in pointing some good people in the right direction, I'll shut up, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that. Is there any members got questions for George? Craig?
Thanks, Chair. Just wondering how the SPA is looking to possibly turn itself around as well with the new Chief Constable coming in and his different approach to policing to the original Chief Constable. That obviously will have an effect on the SPA and how you as a board moving forward will control that, because if he's making changes to the way he polices, then obviously that will affect the SPA.
Yes, absolutely. It's a good point. The SP, of course, chose the new Chief Constable largely because of what he said he would do. We now have quite a strong record of what he said he wanted to do around local policing, if an interest here. And our role will be to hold him to account to the things he promised he would do in the interview to get the job in the first place. So we are very keen that some of that community-orientated world, some of that one size does not fit all, some of that devolvement of authority and control to a more local level, which is entirely in keeping with where the SPA see things going. That's what the Chief is talking about. So that's what we're going to try and support and encourage. There are a number of changes at the Chief Officer team, a number of deputies, one deputy is moving on, some ACCs are moving on, so there is an opportunity to bring in a command team that actually listens to the kind of things that you have been raising all morning. So that's what we're encouraged to do. The 30 recommendations in Andrew Flanagan's review are not just about Police Scotland. A large part of them are about how the SPA has conducted its business and how we need to improve as well. And indeed, there are one or two where we need colleagues in Police Scotland to support us in the way ahead. But none of it is in any contrast to any of the things that you've raised today and the things you've been saying today about how you would like to see policing develop.
Yeah, no, Jack?
It's just that the final paragraph that Andrew has in that a settled senior management structure which will be in Dumfries and Galloway for the long term. I hope that'll be soon, because we've seen so many changes since Police Scotland come in with management structure. You begin to wonder who's who. They're there one minute, they're gone the next. We've had Bobby Moore, we've had Kate, they just seem to be here for the short term and gone. But I think that settled one would certainly make a difference.
Yes, thank you. Bit of a body swerve here. Deployment of police officers will be for the Chief Constable, but we do acknowledge the point that you make. In fact, it's a point that is made and I have experienced regularly over 32 years at community councils, where community officers regularly turn over, where police sergeants, police inspectors are regularly moved, and it's exactly the same issue at a strategic level with your commanders. So we do understand it. I will say what I used to say way back when, in that all the really good people that you enjoy having the company of and the leadership of are ambitious, they move on and they go other places, they do really good things, and then they retire very early, as you've already mentioned. So we will do our best within those constraints.
Ronnie?
Just to follow up on that, lost my thought there, sorry.
You better hurry then. I'd just like to say a lot of the things that have been brought up today, especially a point of continuity, that I've already raised in the continuous improvement group, and that's been a good bit of practice that we started last year. And that started through Mike Leslie, and I've been guaranteed through Gary Ritchie that that will continue. And we've already met with the new chief and that, and things are looking quite positive, I think, for the future. There's still a lot of challenges ahead, but I think locally, for instance, we didn't get a visit from SPA in the whole first year of the new force, and then we finally got Brian Barber, who came and attended a couple of meetings and gave us updates. So we've came from there to sort of a wee bit more positive working with the partners and that, and now we've got yourself, George, somebody with local experience and local knowledge. I think it can only be positive, especially for the workings of this group. So we appreciate your appointment, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Ronnie, have you got your thoughts about?
Thanks. I was thinking about something George said, and it just threw me. It was the follow-up what Jack was saying about settled, settled management and that. And the question I was going to ask was about the staff survey that was released earlier this year, last year rather, where it was predicted that maybe within 3 years you'd lose quite a percentage of the serving officers. And I just wondered, as the SPA and the new Chief Constable, how you're going to address that. And I don't know if you could tell us today, but surely that's a concern for us all.
I can't give you a great deal of detail, Ron, on how it's going to be addressed. I think certainly the issues that came out of the staff survey were well rehearsed during the appointment process for the new chief, and there will be again for the new chief officer team, because the messages were pretty clear around policing leadership. I do think that there is not only a concern around turnover of people, there is also opportunity, in that there are a lot of really good people within the police service in Scotland, both police officers and police staff, who are just ready and willing to take up the opportunities that arrive. So I think the important bit will be to keep your eye on the ball for the Chief Constable and his team, and actually grasp the opportunities as well as seeing the challenges. So more detail on that, I think, will hopefully come out during the review, because the review recommendations they're not black and white. An awful lot of them need a bit more work and a bit more involvement from people like yourself to actually make them real.
Before we go to the recommendations for item 6, George has made himself available in the members' room after the meeting if anybody would like to have a chat. Well, maybe he hasn't, but he has now. So can we go to the recommendations for item 6, please? One, to note, the Dumfries and Galloway response to the Scottish Government's strategic police priorities is detailed in Appendix 1. Recommendation 2, the Dumfries and Galloway Council response to Police Scotland on the draft annual police plan is detailed in Appendix 3. And 3, the Dumfries and Galloway Council response to Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary in Scotland, HMICS, scrutiny plan is detailed in Appendix 4. Thanks very much for your attendance today. I have no further business. Thank you.